think this is a great venue to talk about the issues of small business. When I started this campaign, people asked, why are you doing this? And there's three reasons. One, there's an all-time low confidence in government. 12% of people have faith in Congress. Two, we have not had Republican representation in Congress since Chris Shays won in 2006. And the most important issue is John Larson has been in office for 24 years. And when you ask what he's accomplished and what his vision is, I think it's time for new representation. In our campaign, the biggest policy is the economy. Because if people have good jobs, it stabilizes families, it stabilizes communities. And one of the biggest differences between John Larson and myself is spending. Spending has been a huge problem. Even Democratic economists say we have to bring down spending, it's going to worsen inflation. You look at Larry Summers, who was president of Harvard, who was Treasury Secretary for Clinton, top economic advisor for Barack Obama, said we're going to get worsening inflation with the massive spending. And did they listen? They really didn't. You look at the American Rescue Plan at $1.9 trillion, the Inflation Reduction Plan at $770 billion, and the most egregious of all, we now have the Loan Forgiveness Plan, which probably altogether will count about $1 trillion. Massive spending. Put that all together, you have about $3.6 trillion of spending. Divide that by 50 states, you've got over $70 billion per state. We need a pushback on that. Small business is the backbone of our economy. More than 40% of the economy is due to small business. We need to be a country that supports small business. And the biggest problem facing small business right now is inflation. In addition to the massive spending, and again, looking at John, his two big proposals, tunneling the highways, hugely expensive, probably today's dollars would be about $25 billion. You look at inflation, look at Social Security, John's been pushing, they say run out of money in 4 years because it's too expensive. We need to get away from that. We need to look at good solutions. In addition to the massive spending, you look at healthcare. The CPI numbers that came out recently showed healthcare increased 24.3% over 1 year, 24.3%. Healthcare is way too expensive, it's way too confusing, and there's too much discrepancies in care. You look at, in our state, University of Connecticut gets $250 million a year bailout, and you drive down Main Street in Hartford and you don't find one single healthcare center. We need to change that, not just by pouring dollars in, but we need good models, like value-based plans that look at both cost and quality of care. And finally, looking at energy, is that the Biden administration really pushed back on our energy industry. And what happens? He ends up begging Saudi Arabia to increase production, and that leaves us in a difficult situation with our prices rising, and we can't help out our European friends who are getting strangled right now by Putin. There needs to be a change on that. The final issue before I pass this off, we'll talk about crime. Democratic policies of defund the police, taking away immunity from police officers, have seen a rise in crime. We have a 20-year high murder rate in Hartford, as well as many other cities. Look at New York City, even look at Burlington, Vermont. This defund the police has really affected things and made crime worse. And when people are afraid, they don't go out and shop. They don't go to these local stores. They stay inside and they stay away, and that hurts small business. We see a great opportunity. Today, we have prize business owners. Jody and her husband Ron have been in the clothing industry in Hartford for over 40 years. This is their beautiful store. I shop here when I shop for my wife. Great service, great products. But they're being strangled. These federal policies causing inflation and worsening crime are hurting small business. I want Jody to eventually come up and talk and tell her story. We also have Stanley Nowak from Moe's Midtown Diner. It was the award-winning diner that won 10 years as the best breakfast in Hartford, getting strangled by inflation and rising costs. We have G. Lester, one of the largest barbershops in New England, who will talk about the difficulty of having a business under this system. So I'm going to pass this off with probably the best known and most respected Republican in the state of Connecticut, Ben Candelora, and then after that, Jody will start, Jody Morneau, and then we'll answer questions if people have questions. So Ben, thank you.
Thank you. Good afternoon, everyone. I'm Vincent Candelora, House Republican leader. I'm from North Branford, and it's a pleasure to be here to join all of you. I'm also a small business owner, and I think the only entity that's really benefiting from inflation is government. We're seeing more tax dollars coming in.